Hey, it's Brianna the Stinky Frog. I know I was supposed to have this video out several months ago, and at this point, GDKO has actually finished all of its rounds and the winner has already been announced. But I still felt like I wanted to make this video because I really liked the game that I created. Anyway, I made it to round 2 of GDKO, and this round's task was to create a multifunctional level or collection of levels that included QuickTime events. Everyone's favorite thing, right? The Discord was constantly filled with questions of, does this count as a QTE? What the hell are multifunctional levels? And everyone's answers were always contradicting every other one's answers. So most of the games were kind of like, sure, here's my idea, hopefully you like it, thumbs up, we're good to go, maybe. Here was the actual judging criteria. How good was the level design? How well implemented were the QuickTime events? How multifunctional was the level design? Was the difficulty fair? And was it fun to play? It took me like 3 days of nonstop thinking to come up with an idea that I liked. Some of the ideas had too much QTE focus, others only focused on the level design, and I wasn't finding the right balance, and it was actually a struggle to get to an idea I liked. I had an idea to have the player plays a snail and the QTE would help them avoid birds, but I couldn't think of good level design. Then I thought of a typing game with QTE, but that was it. That was the entire design I could think of. Maybe a pancake flipping game, and the QT would be to flip the pancakes, and the levels were like a stove, a campfire, a volcano. But none of those ideas were really resonating with me, so I kept thinking and marinating in my brain until eventually I had something that I loved. I present to y'all Stealth and Poosable 3. Evade your coworkers as you try to eliminate the smell of your bowel movement from the office space with 5 unique levels, each progressing in difficulty, and bugs. That was my finished game for GDKO round 2. I'll go ahead and post the results of this round as well, so that way the rest of this video can just be me yapping about the problems and what I solved and things I learned. So first, let's jump into the art. So obviously the style I was going for was pixel art, and I wanted it to be fun, cartoony, and just cute in general. Not too serious, just kind of goofy. I wanted the office space to feel very muted and kind of boring and soulless, kind of like a real office space, especially with the millennial gray everywhere. And I wanted the characters to be able to stand out, especially the main character. So I don't think I have any recordings of my main character, so I'll just post the sprite sheets of his idle position as well as his walking position, so you can see what those look like. So I made my character, I wanted him to be really unique. I wanted his idle position to stand like really differently than the NPCs that would catch you, and I made him bright purple. I did a little bit more detailing on him. He had more shades, whereas the NPCs that I made were very simple. They had like no shading. It was just a here's a solid color, here's a solid color. So you can see here I was actually working on some of those in the background, and I actually had 6 NPCs, but not all of them actually made it into the game. I had 3 different skin tones and a boy and a girl in each skin tone, with one of those skin tones having a pair of glasses as well. So I wanted them to be really unique. I wanted each level to feel like you were with new coworkers, and it was easy enough to do because all I had to do was make one, copy paste it, change the colors. So I also, like I said, I made the sprite tiles for the background and everything, and I wanted all of those colors to be very muted. I wanted all of the NPCs to stand out, especially since I didn't have like a mini map showing you where they were. I wanted it to be like, oh, there's a bright green, that's something I should look at. Oh, this bright color, this fully saturated whatever. I wanted it to be a little more there, plus the main character. So I did several different floor tiles as well as wall tiles, so I could mix and match them all. And if you notice, if you play the game, in the very first level, it's a very kind of looks like a basement, and there are no windows. So I wanted it to feel like each level you progressed, you actually got to a better like level and floor of the office space. Um, I'll just throw up whatever screenshots I have of all of those tiles just so you can see them. And then we'll go ahead and get into a new thing that I learned called a blending tree. So, a blending tree, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically a way to visualize it. Like when you're seeing a game and a character, like in my game, for instance, if they walk left, right, up, and down, where they face each direction, and when they're moving down, they face down, where they're moving up, you see the back of them walking away from the camera, essentially. I thought originally that I needed a bunch of code, like complex code, to make that. So I was dreading trying to implement that part. I was like, oh no, I'm going to run into so many problems. Something's going to happen. The animation's not going to work. No, it was so easy. It was literally like click, 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 done. The blending tree worked. It was so easy. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I held off learning blending trees for so long because they were way simpler than I thought they were going to be. And it was, it was beautiful. I loved it. So blending trees, very easy. However, I think when I was making the blending trees, and this worked for the main character, and it didn't break the game, at least for the main character, so it was fine. I didn't worry about fixing it. However, I ran into a lot of bugs with the NPCs with this. So I believe that with the blending tree, when you assign the directions of X and Y and everything, you have to assign, so that way it knows which sprite to move to when it's moving in whatever direction. I tried to keep it really simple. I tried not to like do every single sprite animation, especially since I was trying to make so many different characters. Even though they were pretty simple and all the same, it was still a lot, and I had to actually still develop the game. I think I probably should have just made the left and right facing directions of both the main character and all of my NPCs, instead of just trying to use the actual little button that says press X to flip the sprite on the X axis, or press this box to flip it on the X axis. Because I think that caused problems and it actually ended up breaking some of the NPCs. No matter how many times I restarted a level and tried to redesign it, it just had the same problem. And in the final level, you can actually see it in one of the NPCs. I think I fixed it with the other two, but in one of them, you can still see it when it's moving in one specific direction. So when it's moving, I think to the right, it looks like it's facing upward. And its direction that it's seeing is not going upwards. It's seeing the way it's moving. But yeah, so that was a bug that I had to deal with, and I fixed it in a few levels. And at first, I was like, I have no idea how I fix this, but I think I ended up figuring it out, and it was exactly what I was just explaining. I just needed more sprites, but I wanted to be lazy, and next time I won't do that because I would have saved myself like several hours of trying to debug and trying to fix everything, and I probably could have made a better level 4 and a better level 5 if I would have just made the sprites face both directions. It wouldn't have taken that much time. I already had it facing one way. All I had to do was copy it and duplicate it and flip it to go the other way, but I wanted to be lazy. Lesson learned. Something I wish I would have done is when you're playing, if you're like moving in any direction, when you walk up to the desk, as soon as you get to the desk trigger, it'll open up the QTE and it always tells you, oop, you're wrong, because you're usually still moving when you hit the trigger. So you're hitting another keyboard input, and I should have removed the keyboard input altogether and made it to where like it waits a second or waits half a second before it reads keyboard input, but I didn't. And I also really wanted to give like a visual cone so that way you could see where the enemies were looking and how far they could see, because right now they have a really far distance, which is super annoying for some of the later levels, especially since I don't have a map for the player. But yeah, I'm still so proud of this game. This was probably the first game jam game where I was like, this is my plan, and I executed it like almost perfectly. Obviously, there are bugs. It's a game jam game, and this was a solo game jam, so I had to work alone. So I had to solve everything myself. But I am really proud of myself. I was number 20th overall, and people loved the level design. I was number 11 for how good the level design was. And yeah, I'm pretty proud. I had a lot of people enjoy the game, and that's all I wanted it to be. Something fun, simple, and what players would enjoy, even if there were a few bugs in it. Yeah, that is my Stealth and Crucible 3 very, very late devlog. So thanks for watching.